Welcome to my UK Global Talent Visa inspirational webinar. And really excited to host this webinar for you today. It's my final one for 2024, and I've got a special guest today that I'd love for you to meet and ask questions. So just a little bit about the webinar. I'll just explain about what is the Global Talent Visa. I'll talk about the stage 1 endorsement application and process. Then I will interview Mikal, who was my client who recently received his endorsement. And then I'll open up the floor and you can ask your own questions to Mikal. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to the questions at the end of the webinar. So just a little bit about myself. If I haven't met you already, my name is Michelle Hewer. I'm Vietnamese by background, but I do hold Australian, British, and Irish citizenships. I am a global talent visa coach, and how I came to be a coach is in 2016, I was endorsed with exceptional talent for the visa, and I was also the Tech Nation visa ambassador for a few years when I received my visa. The reason was because back in 2016, it was a very new visa, and I was one of the top 50 that received it. So they needed ambassadors, and they still have them now, to share their story and to help others along with their journey. And the great thing about getting the Global Talent Visa is that in 2019, I applied for my indefinite leave to remain and British citizenship. So my immigration journey in the UK has ended because of the Global Talent Visa, which was a massive relief. I spent 7 years in the UK. I based myself in Manchester and Newcastle in the north of England, and I travelled a lot down to London for my wearable tech startup. And before I became a Global Talent Visa coach, I was a solicitor in Australia and obviously a startup tech entrepreneur, and that's how I got my Global Talent Visa. I started it after I got my visa. I wrote a blog about my journey because back then in 2016, no one knew about it. There weren't many people applying, and we didn't really know much about it. So I shared my story on my blog, and that blog went viral. And that's how I started helping lots of people along in their journey. So then that turned into a full-time job. So over the years since I've been doing it, I've coached over about 1,000 tech entrepreneurs and senior execs and tech employees in various ways. So some have been my clients, some I've just helped along the way. And because of that, my success rate is 90%. The endorsement rate is 54%. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And my biggest success usually, obviously, is when clients receive their successful decisions. But the quicker decision, the better. And I've had clients receive their result within 3 hours, which is amazing, to 27 hours. It's a huge, huge achievement for us when they do receive a decision so quickly. However, the average decision time is about 2 to 3 weeks, or 2 to 4 weeks. The decision time can take up to 8 weeks. So anywhere less than 8 weeks is great, and the quicker the better. Over the years, I've helped so many different clients working for big companies, WhatsApp, Sony, LinkedIn, Meta, Google, Zoom, Oracle, Intel, Coinbase, and I've helped startup founders, CTOs, CEOs. You can see the list. My work is varied. Everyone I help, they have a different story, even if they have the same job or title. Everyone has a different story to tell, and this is why I love doing what I do. I hear so many stories, and everyone has such an interesting background to share. Just a quick disclaimer, I only help with the stage 1 endorsement. I'm not affiliated with Home Office or Tech Nation, and I'm not an immigration solicitor, even though I have a legal background. If you have any questions, legal questions, I can refer you to an immigration solicitor. But the stage 1 endorsement is not an immigration application. It's just an endorsement application to Tech Nation. Over the years, when I was doing my startup, I was featured in a lot of different publications, and that's what helped me get the Global Talent Visa. And you can see there, I was featured in TechCrunch, in Startups Magazine, Business Leader. I was a judge at an IoT hackathon. I spoke at events, and I was featured in the Sunday Times for my startup. So these are the types of things that the assessors will be looking for under your leadership criteria, is to have a public-facing profile, because this visa is on merit, and it's about what you can add value to the tech sector. And this is my blog. It's in my on my website, and that's how it all started. This blog that I just wrote to help others went crazy, and I'm really proud of it though, because I was just sharing my story, and then it led to a full-time job helping others do it, which it was accidental. I'm really excited that it's come to what it has today. So please do read it. I haven't really changed it that much. That was what started my whole journey. And so recently I hosted an event in London only in October this year. After all this time of helping clients, I'd never met them really, because I'd been doing it over Zoom. So in October, just a few months ago, I hosted a celebration party in London and invited some of my special clients to celebrate getting the visa. And you can see that we had an amazing time. And hopefully, if you do get the visa and I've helped you, you can come to my alumni party as well. And you can also watch my YouTube video as well. I've interviewed some of my successful clients, and you can go on my YouTube channel and you can see that is on the way, so you can have a look there. Not everyone wants to be interviewed, which is absolutely fine, but these are some of my clients who have so kindly agreed to share their story and to be interviewed. So just quickly, the last year, Tech Nation decided to close down, and there was a lot of unease and worry amongst the community about what was going to happen to the visa. It was always going to remain. Tech Nation did announce their closure. However, Founders Forum rescued them, acquired them, and Tech Nation is still the endorsing body. They've been acquired by Founders Forum. Visas, the Tech Nation visa still remains, and they are under the Founders Forum group. Now, there is a tender out which has been closed for a new endorsing body that will be announced in January of next year. We don't know if Tech Nation is one of the parties that want to continue to be the endorsing body, but that remains to be seen until January. So just keep your eye out. If you're signed up to my newsletter, I will let you know what's going on. But the Tech Nation visa, or the Global Talent visa in digital technologies, will still remain. We just don't know who the new endorsing body will be come January. So I will let you know. The criteria is probably all going to be the same, and the guidelines are all going to be the same. It's just the endorsing body. So what is the Global Talent Visa? It used to be the Exceptional Talent Visa, and that's what I got. It's now been rebranded to the Global Talent Visa. It's a special visa that was introduced to allow highly skilled tech entrepreneurs and talent to apply for the right to live in the UK for up to 5 years, and you can get settlement as well. It's a 2-stage process, so you have to meet the criteria and be endorsed by Tech Nation before you can then go on and apply for your Stage 2 visa. Stage 2 visa is that Home Office immigration visa application. This is more than a job application. It's based on your merit. So it is really about some of the criteria which you have to meet, and I'll go through that in a second. So it does require you to talk about the job that you do, that you get paid to do, but it is more than that. It's about what value you can add to the tech community. Okay, and the reason why I've got a hashtag Tech Nation visa, Tech Nation currently are the endorsing body. The Global Talent Visa is actually an umbrella visa. There are different endorsing bodies for different sectors and industries. So there's digital technology, which is Tech Nation. There's the arts endorsing body. There's also a science, there's engineering, there's architecture, and there's fashion. So there's different endorsing bodies for those sectors, and this is how we distinguish between the different sectors. This is the Tech Nation visa, because the endorsing body is Tech Nation. So the benefits of the Global Talent Visa is that it gives you the freedom and flexibility to live and work in the UK for up to 5 years. You can apply for indefinite leave to remain and British citizenship. You can also, if you're on a Tier 2 visa and you're currently in the UK, which I help a lot of people with, they can switch from Tier 2 to the Global Talent, and the time in the UK counts towards the Global Talent Visa and towards your indefinite leave to remain. I was on an entrepreneur's visa at the time. And there's no entrepreneur's visa anymore. I think it's now rebranded to the innovator's visa, which is a little bit different. But it's very similar in that my time in the UK under the entrepreneur's visa also counted. So when I got I had already spent some time in the UK, and then when I got my global talent, my time in the UK counted towards my indefinite leave to remain. You can also bring your dependents with you on the Global Talent Visa. You can register a UK limited company. I do help some students who are on a student visa and their visa does not allow them to register a UK limited company. So the Global Talent Visa allows them to do that. You can also work for a tech company without the need for a company sponsorship. So that's where the Tier 2 visa comes in. That's the difference. So this is why some people do switch from Tier 2 to Global Talent, because under Tier 2, you're kind of stuck or because restricted to working for the company that has sponsored you. So the Global Talent Visa gives you that freedom. And also it's attached to you. So when I was on my Global Talent Visa, I was a startup entrepreneur, and I wanted a bit of freedom from doing my startup. So my Global Talent Visa allowed me to be a community manager for an accelerator. I was also worked for a university as well under my Global Talent Visa. And then I went back to my startup. So I was able to do a lot of different things alongside working for my startup because I needed a break from working in my startup, not getting paid, but I was able to take contracts and work for the accelerator and for the university. The Global Talent Visa Stage 1 endorsement process application fee is quite cost effective. It's not in the thousands, it's in the hundreds. It's only when you apply for your Stage 2 visa, once you get the endorsement, is when the fees are a little bit higher, only because you do have to pay for an immigration health surcharge. But the Stage 1 endorsement application is very cost effective. So just a few stats. Different locations from people from different countries. So you get people from Europe because of Brexit, Africa, India, North America, and China, and Australia. So, I think there are about 90 different countries that people are applying from. Again, I said it's a 54% endorsement rate. Over the years, there's been about 5,000 successful recipients. Now, this number seems quite low since 2014 when they announced the visa. The reason is because up until a few years ago, and this is when I applied, there was a cap. Every year there was only they were only able to endorse 200 people, and I fell into one of those. So not only was it stressful to get the visa, there was a cap. So only 200 people per year could actually get the endorsement. But now they've lifted that cap. So hopefully, obviously, more people can be endorsed. So the numbers will increase over time. You can apply for talent or promise, and there's a 68-32 split. Because tech is male dominated, obviously there's more males applying than females. And you can also join the alumni once you are endorsed. You can join my alumni, or you can join the bigger Tech Nation Visa alumni. And there's a great group there. I'm part of it as well. And they do lots of networking events and things like that. So once you get the visa, you can join the alumni. Some more stats here. These stats are a few years ago, but they're very similar. Not much has changed over a few years. These stats are from different countries who are getting the endorsement. So there is a 30% endorsement rate for these countries, and it goes up into these countries. So it's just something for you to consider, but don't take it as gospel and don't let that stop you from applying. These are just what they're seeing, the stats. And I do help a lot of people from these countries as well. Also with the skills, obviously, because this is a tech visa, obviously software engineers are being endorsed. But as you can see, straight under that is biz dev, there's product management, there's marketing. So there's business skills as well. So people with business skills can apply. They are definitely eligible to apply, and they are being endorsed as well. These are just some of the sectors that people are working in who are being endorsed. These are just, I think these are numbers from last year or the year before. You can see there's fintech, AI, machine learning, apps, data analytics, cybersecurity is a big one, health tech, ed tech. So I help in all these sectors. Fintech was quite popular last year, and cybersecurity. Those two have been quite popular in the last few years, and definitely AI. 1 in 3 have software engineering skills, and 1 in 4 are founders. I get a lot of questions about, is this visa for founders or for people, employees, but it's for both. So, yeah. Now, again, over years, you can see these are the applications. I applied in 2016, so there's not many stats there. But as you can see, over a period of time, it's increased, okay? And the reason why this one is such a big jump was when TechNation announced their closure, okay? And the applications jumped. I was so busy during that time last year. Plus, it was kind of sort of outside of COVID as well. COVID just finished, or it was around COVID time. So a lot of people were applying and it just shot up, and now it's still increasing. I haven't got stats for December. I've got a couple of clients that are going to submit, so there will be more. But as you can see, these numbers are going up. So this is why the TechNation visa, or the Global Talent Visa in digital technologies, will still remain. It's very popular, and it's for highly skilled tech employees or founders. Okay, so just going through some of the documents that you need when you apply. There's 15 documents all in, roughly about 3 pages each. So it's about 45 pages, your application, okay? And people have likened it to a PhD of your tech career. And it is true. Once you've gone through the process, it's huge. It's everything that you've done, usually in the last 5 to 7 years, because you're kind of capped to looking at the last 5-7 years of your career and putting it into a document that's 3 pages each. It's about 45 pages. So it is like a PhD of your career. You need your CV, your personal statement, and you also need 3 letters of recommendations by experts in your field. They don't only assess you as an applicant, they also assess your experts. So we really have to go through who your experts are going to be, who will support you in your application. Now, you also have to meet some mandatory and optional criteria, and they make up the rest of your documents. So it's 10 documents. There's 5 criteria, of which you choose 3. Okay, so there are 2 categories in which you can apply for. You can apply for the exceptional talent or the exceptional promise. And this is why I think they changed the name from exceptional talent visa to global talent visa. It was quite confusing. So if you're going as an exceptional talent, you should have more than 5 years experience. You're later in your career, you prove your leadership through your skills and achievements. And these are for more senior people. Okay. And of course, they have to look at people who are less senior in their career. So these are people that can go for exceptional promise, which are emerging leaders. Okay. So they have less than 5 years experience. You're earlier in your career. You've proved your potential to be a leader through your skills and achievements. And these are for more junior people. Okay. So you can pick one or exceptional talent or promise, but usually it's the years of experience that will tell you which one you should go for. Okay. Now, the eligibility, as I said, you can have a technical or business skill to apply. So this is a list here. It's not an exhaustive list because the tech sector moves so quickly, but if you just pick the ones that you fall closest to. So basically developing products, and this one's about selling products or helping grow a company in the tech sector. Okay, so you can see that's more sales, growth. This is more developing products. Okay. Now, they do say that the types of specialisms that aren't considered suitable. I get a lot of questions from junior VCs and people who work for consultancies like the KPMGs, the Capgeminis, the Wipros, Tata Consultancy. Unfortunately, they would be deemed as consultancies, and anyone who works for agencies, unfortunately, this is not the visa for you to apply. So they actually specifically say that. And I will tell any client who I feel like, yeah, if they fall under consultancy, you'd be wasting your time. Yeah, you can still apply if you want to, but it specifically says that it's not considered a suitable route for you. And again, you can be an employee or founder. And it's really 75% of people are employees who apply and 25% are founders who apply. So this definition is very important. When they said that, you should be working for a product-led digital technology company. And when I started helping clients, they didn't really give a definition of what a product-led digital technology company for a number of years. And I was pushing them to provide a definition so that people would understand what a product-led digital technology company was. And luckily, in the last few years, they have been able to give us a definition of what it is. So this helps you determine whether or not you should be applying, and if it's a consultancy, if it doesn't fall within this definition, then you're not working for a product-led digital technology company, and which means you might be ineligible. So you need to have worked for a product-led digital technology company, and that is defined as a business that provides a proprietary digital technical service product platform hardware as their primary revenue source. So some companies develop products, but they also do consultancy. But the developing of the product should be primary. Okay. So this is another test. If you work for or you are a founder of a digital tech company that develops its own products for its customers by license of subscription or by selling it, then that would be considered a product-led digital technology company. No consultancies or outsourcers. So I help a lot of clients with this, so you can definitely ask me to help you with that. Now, the criteria, depending if you're going for talent or promise, it doesn't really matter. The criteria is still the same. So there's 5 criteria and you choose 3. However, one of the criteria is mandatory. So the mandatory criteria is you need to show leadership. Okay, there are 10 examples of leadership in the guidelines. I will go through that next week because I don't have time this week, but it's really about showing your thought leadership in the field, either internally within the company that you work for, or mainly externally. Do you have a public-facing profile to show your leadership or expertise in the field, such as conferences or writing articles or blogs or contributing to the open source community or contributing to a large technology-led initiative? So examples which I used was I was a judge at a hackathon. I was quoted in lots of tech publications about, what I knew about wearable tech because my expertise was in wearable tech. I spoke at wearable tech conferences about the trends in the industry. So those are the types of things that they're looking for under leadership. And you need at least 3 examples of this to make up your 10 documents. The 4 other optional criteria are innovation, which is showing your innovations in the field by working for a product-led digital technology company. So about developing products or sales strategies on how to sell the products. You also need to show, if you want to choose this criteria, proof of recognition for work outside of your immediate occupation that advances the tech sector. So any kind of like volunteer work that impacts the community. The 3rd criteria is showing any commercial, technical, entrepreneurial impact, okay, at working for a product-led digital technology company. Or the 4th one is academic contributions. So a lot of people ask me about this one, and it's not about if you did your master's or PhD and you wrote a thesis for it. It's outside of that. So if you did write a thesis in your master's or PhD, which is fine, you submit that to your university. But if you take that on and publish it in a journal, in a reputable journal publication, then that would be acceptable, not something that you're already doing for the purposes of getting your master's or your PhD. So because this is about your merit in the industry, not doing it to get your certifications. I chose this one. Back when I was developing my heated gloves, my wearable tech heated gloves, I worked with a university and a professor because they were developing some heated material as well. So we collaborated, and I helped them and they helped me. So I helped them with their academic research, and they also helped me with my industry commercial product. So that I picked this criteria. Okay, so hopefully that helped. So the process, right? So we know that there's 2 stages. Okay, the first stage is applying for the endorsement, and the second stage is once you are endorsed, you apply for the visa. Okay, within stage 1, okay, there's 2 steps. The first step is you pay online at the Home Office, and again the fee is £524, which is not that much. It's not in the thousands for your endorsement. Okay, so once you apply, at the Home Office, you register, you pay. You've got 30 working days to then go to step 2, and that is to upload your documents onto the Tech Nation portal. So that's where you upload all your 45 pages. You've got 30 working days to do this. You have 15, and if you don't within the 15 working days, they send you a reminder to give you another 15 working days. Okay, so that would be step 2. This is great. When I applied, I had to print everything out and send it to, I think, Swindon or somewhere. I can't remember where, Sheffield, and just wait. I didn't know anything else. Just send it. Hopefully they received it. I did it by registered post, obviously, and then just waited. Whereas now everything's uploading all online, which is so much easier. Okay, so then what the Home Office does is then send it to Tech Nation, and then Tech Nation have up to 8 weeks to review your application. Average is 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, so once Tech Nation reviews it, they then tell the Home Office whether or not you are endorsed. So you'll get an email from the Home Office, not Tech Nation, and the Home Office will say either you are successful or unsuccessful. If you are unsuccessful, there is an opportunity to appeal, and there is no fee for the appeal. And you've got 28 calendar days to appeal the assessor's decision. And there's a form that you can fill out, and you're seeking for, an endorsement review. So what will happen is you'll see the feedback, and the only reason why you can appeal is if you feel that the assessor made a mistake in assessing your application, and you need to point to where they did because you submitted your application, you've done everything right, and then you say, well, the assessor's made a mistake because they didn't see this bit, and this is the feedback that they gave. What generally happens is it goes to a new assessor, and a new assessor will review your appeal and your original application, and then they will make another decision. They will say either we agree with the first assessor, or we will overturn the first assessor's decision, which is great news. And so you will be successful. Okay. If you are successful, you go to stage 2. You've got the endorsement letter saying, yes, you are endorsed. There's no congratulations or anything. It's just you have been endorsed. You can proceed to stage 2. So that's what they will say. And then you will then go on to apply to the Home Office. This is the visa application. You submit your endorsement letter as well as all these other questions. It's a Home Office visa application now. You would go and pay 192, which isn't that much again. You do your biometrics, and the immigration health surcharge is the bigger fee because it's about $1,035 per annum of your visa. So if you've got the Global Talent visa for 5 years, it's 1,000 times 5. So that's where the fee comes in. But I mean, if you look at it, it's for the health surcharge. So it's to help you with your medical in the UK. So that's what the fee is for. Then you get a response within 3 to 8 weeks. But if you want to go priority, you can get that a lot sooner. I did the priority as well. But when I applied, I don't want to say, but my immigration health surcharge fee was only $200, and that was a long time ago. It went from $200 to $400 to $600, and now it's $1,035. So over the years, it has increased. Now, going back to if you appeal and you are unsuccessful again, you can look at both feedback and you can resubmit, or that might be the end of your journey. It's completely up to you. I help a lot of people with that process as well. So I hope that makes a bit of sense there. I know it's a bit convoluted, but it's a step-by-step process, and I can certainly help people with that. So these are the reasons why people come and help me, ask me to help them. They first of all ask if they're eligible, how do they present their documents, what is relevant information. As you can see, there's so many questions and so much in the guidelines. Criteria, what documents do I put against each criteria? Who are my experts? How do I show criteria, innovations and impact? And how do I show that I'm an exceptional leader? How much experience do I need? And if I receive an unsuccessful decision, what should I do? So I help people with this. I've been doing this since 2016, full-time, probably in the last 5 years. And I've done my own application. I know things have changed over the years, but I've seen lots of applications. I've seen lots of unsuccessful applications, and I've done a lot of successful applications as well. So I can certainly help anyone with any of these questions. I've got a website here. You can have a look at it. If you want me to assess your eligibility, I can certainly do that. Just fill in my eligibility questionnaire on my website here or here and answer those questions in as much detail as you can, because as you can see, there's a lot to it. Some people can be eligible, but they may not be able to meet the criteria. And I assess both. So have a look at my website. There's a lot of information in there. So here are some of my 5 top tips by being a recipient and also by being a coach. So I've mixed the two. This is your chance to tell your unique story. There's 45 pages that you need to submit. And it is really about storytelling, but in a way that also meets the criteria as well. Your tech network is your net worth, because you need people to help you and vouch for you in this application process. This process is all about self-promotion as well. If you can't speak highly of yourself and the things that you've done, the assessor's not going to see that. So it needs to be very clear about, how good you are. And it's not about bragging. It's about identifying your achievements and telling and convincing the assessor why you deserve to be in the UK and why you meet the criteria. Again, being eligible is one thing. Meeting the criteria requires a strategy in putting together all 15 documents in place. And also, please contact me sooner rather than later if you need support. I can check your application, review, or have a strategy session with you. I help a lot of people in different stages. Some have been made redundant. Some their visas are expiring and they need to leave the country, but they want to do this. And this process, minimum 2 months. And I help people with their application for 9 months sometimes. And it does sound like a long time, but if you've got so many other things going on in your life, like work and family and friends, and there's lots of things, this process does take a long time. I mean, PhDs take 4 years. I mean, this is similar to that, but obviously it won't take as long, but just bear in mind that these things take longer than you think. Bonus tip, assessors don't click on links as well. So if you do have something you need to show in a link form, taking a screenshot and sourcing the link is the best way to do it, because they don't click on links. And yeah, those are my 5. I've got loads of tips, but these are my top 5 tips. So as I said before, I've got a webinar next Thursday. It goes into a lot more detail than what I've just mentioned, because I've got to interview Mikal now. So please do sign up for that. I will send a newsletter out tomorrow so that you can then sign up for it as well. So just save that date for next Thursday. And it's my final webinar for 2024 about the Global Talent Visa, and something you can think about over the holiday season as well. And as I said, I have a YouTube channel, my website's there, so please do check it out. And there's loads more inspirational webinars and stories and lots of facts and tips that I give on my webinar as well, on my YouTube channel as well. So I hope that's enough information, because I really want to get to introducing Mikal Hart, who is one of my most recent clients. Mikal is from the US, as you can see. I hope you can guess where he's from. And Mikal lived in Oxford while he was in the UK, but I'll let Mikal tell you a story. But I'd like to welcome Mikal. Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
Mikal. Lovely
You
to see
still got
you again.
you still got the flag that I gave you
That's
last
right.
in October. Thank you for bringing it. I love my flags.
It's lovely to see
Welcome.
you. Hello,
Thank you
everybody.
so much. Thank you so much for coming.
Right. Shall I talk a little bit about I
Yes,
came to know you?
yes, please do. We're gonna get started straight away. I can see people have asked questions, but we'll get to that at the end. Yes, please introduce yourself. Tell people who you are and how great you are.
How great I am. My name is Mikal Hart, and up until earlier this year, I was a quarter century long employee of Intel Corporation, until some unfortunate adversity hit our company, and I was made redundant in January. So my story is sort of twofold. I was a lifetime software engineer with Intel. And I also did all these little hobby things because I enjoy playing with Arduino and doing software development sort of for fun. And I think that played to my advantage
Ah, I
in
think I've
global
lost
talent
something.
visa. I've had a lifetime love of the UK. ever since I was young, I wanted to come live in the UK, and Intel helped make that possible a couple of years ago. And then, alas, I was made redundant. So um, I was faced with the a forced retirement sort of situation, and I wanted to figure out how I could stay in the UK. So I investigated this global talent visa, and I found Michelle, and I said, "Dang it, I'm going to try for this visa to salvage my opportunity to live in the UK." Because, as you know, if you're on a skilled worker tier two, you said visa, you lose your job, your visa gets curtailed. So that's my background. Michelle, ask me another question.
Yes. Wow, that's a lot. That's so much. Okay, so um, you were on a skilled worker visa. Um, they transferred you over from the US to the UK. How long were you on the skilled worker visa before you were made redundant?
Right. That comes into play here because I was 2 years into my skilled worker visa when I got the announcement of the redundancy. And when I read about the global talent visa, I realized that if somehow I was able to magically acquire this, it would reduce the amount of time I could go to get ILR from 5 years down to only 3 years. So I realized that by getting the global talent visa, I would not only keep my opportunity to stay in the UK for a while longer, but I could shorten the amount of time it would took me to get to ILR. So I thought, well,
Yeah.
it's kind of a long shot, but I'm going to try for this. So that's what I spent
Yes.
all summer doing with Michelle, is working on this application for
Yeah.
the ET.
Okay, I didn't mention this before, and I just wanted to clarify. The difference between exceptional talent and promise is not only in the number of years experience you have, but if you are endorsed with exceptional talent, you can apply for your ILR within 3 years. Now, if you're on a skilled worker visa, which Michael was on, his 3 years was reduced because the time in the UK that he'd already spent on his skilled worker visa was 2 years. So really, he only needed a year to then apply for his ILR, and we'll talk about that later. Whereas with the promise, Michael, if you had applied for exceptional promise, it's 5 years before you apply for your ILR, but your 2 years in the UK would have counted, so you need another three. Obviously, Michael could not apply for promise because it was clear that he was talent. And I do get questions, I've got more than 5 years, can I still apply for promise? It's a risk. Don't do it because the assessors will know, you're trying to circumvent the whole process. Okay, so what challenges and hesitations did you have when you decided, or before you decided to apply, and then obviously why when you did decide to
Oh
apply?
yeah. As everyone on the call knows, there are a lot of challenges to overcome. First of all, is just the idea that this global talent visa can't be for me. The way the Home Office writes that website, it's sort of insidious. They almost write it like you've got to. I like to joke that they ask, have you won a Nobel Prize? And if not, why haven't you? When you read the Home Office website, it's very daunting. You think, gosh, I'm just an ordinary guy. I couldn't possibly be in this echelon. But I think what helped me overcome that initial resistance was a Facebook post I saw where a guy actually wrote that he said, I consider myself to be almost kind of like an ordinary talented engineer, and I'm an ordinary guy and I got it. So don't be discouraged. That's my advice for you is don't necessarily be discouraged wording on the website. It's very terrifying. But I overcame that by thinking that look, it's either this or nothing. I want to at least give it a try. So it's very daunting to begin with, but that's I think the initial challenge that I had. But yeah, like with Michelle's help, I was able to plow through that, and yeah, it worked out well. Hesitations? No, once I decided let's go for that, we went.
We did. Even though once you got over that initial hurdle of, okay, I'm going to apply, there were some challenges along the way as well that you had while I was helping you. Can you talk a little bit about, the structure of the documents and the evidence? Because we did go back and forth a little bit. Just because the criteria so much in the guidelines and the criteria, and you were going one way, and I was like, okay, let's come back. Let's talk about this a little bit more and why we should do it this other way. Because we did have a strategy session, and there was lots to go through in the strategy session.
Yes, I was completely flummoxed by that strategy session. Michelle, earlier in your slideshow, you talked about how you have to have a plan, and the the thing for me was that I have this hubris that I'm a talented storyteller. You said you in your slides you need to be able to tell your story according to the guidelines. So I think I'm a good storyteller, but I ignored, I wasn't paying attention to the guidelines. So when I first started to apply and I was talking to you, I had this idea that I could write these detailed documents telling this flowery story of all the amazing things I've done. For instance, I got my own patent in 2010, an individual patent, and I thought that they'll be amazed at that, and it'll be great. But you were always helping pull me back to the guidelines. The guidelines say that the evidence you provide for your stories has to be from within the last 5 years. So if you tell the story about this amazing patent you got in 2010, they're going to just chuck it in the bin. So
Quite, but there's a story to be told about the patent, and we'll get to that later. But yes, Mikal is multi-patented, is a multi-patent holder, and Mikal has so many interesting stories. The issue was it was more than 5 years ago, so we had to build in all the stuff that Mikal had done a long time ago, but make it relevant to today.
right. I'll just follow up on that. The whole summer process was me going off in one direction and Michelle gently pulling me back to this direction, me going off here and then being pulled back. So for instance, Michelle gave me this great eureka one time where I was desperate to try to mention this patent somewhere, and she taught me that if we could show examples of people who use my invention in contemporary times, then that would be useful. So yeah, I got on the web and found that people using some of my designs within the last since 2019. And then that was like my little eureka. It was a little thing I would have never thought about on my
Yeah.
own. Michelle kind of steered me back to the center line. It turns out, Michelle, I don't like to read guidelines, and I need you to tell me to stick to the guidelines. So thank you for that.
Of course, that's my job. I mean, I know the guidelines from 2016. I had to, being a former lawyer myself, that's all I need, guidance so that we can hit the criteria. Because if you can imagine, the assessors have the guidelines in front of them, and they're probably ticking a box. Right. So we have to kind of remember that that's there all the time. And Michael, your story is very different because, people think, yes, either you have or you haven't got a patent. Like not everyone has a patent. So if anyone is listening to this and feels they can't apply because they don't have a patent, look, Michael is very rare. He's a very rare case. But even then, Michael's patent was from a long time ago. So we had to make it relevant to today. So we also have to be mindful that everyone's story is different. Okay, so if you do have a pattern and you think you're going to include it, which is great, include it, but there has to be a story around it, and also the impact of everything you do is so important. It's fine doing one thing, it's fine doing things. It's the impact of what you've done to the tech sector and to the industry and community. I think that's more meaningful. That's where the story comes in. And Michael, I got you to Google yourself, and you're very good at that. But you found so many great things about yourself when you Googled yourself. And that's why you're a leader in the tech
And
sector.
this brings up another point, Michelle, that helped both you and me, and it's advice I will give for everyone. Michelle, you mentioned that you wrote a blog that went viral. I made a little invention, and this invention that I patented in 2010, and I wrote a little blog about it, and it went viral. I think it's so important, even if you're not going for global talent, to just put yourself out there on the web, make an online presence somehow. That's the best advice I can give a young person, is to give yourself a chance to become recognized by people. I built this little device and I wrote some software that does GPS, and I thought, well, I'll give it to the world to see if anybody wants it. And then a lot of people started using it, and thankfully they did, because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had one of my big 10 stories that Michelle describes to put in my application. So it's very important to
Yes.
put yourself out there.
Can you show us your puzzle box? Michael is an inventor of this geo puzzle box, which if you Google Michael Hart, that will come up. Have you got it in front of you? Because
I
yeah,
do.
there you
Um,
go.
this is a box. I'll just tell briefly that you hand it to your friend as a present. Your friend sees that it's a box, tries to open it, but cannot because it's latched from the inside. So the person eventually decides, well, there's a button here, I'll press it. And when the person presses the button, a very cryptic message appears on this display that's on the front. It says something like 169 miles. And the person has to infer from that little bit of clue that this box needs to be taken somewhere else, 169 miles away, in order for it to be opened. So you move it to another location, and now it says 132 miles away. And eventually you get to some magical spot where the box opens. And I thought, well, that's kind of a cool idea. I'll build it for my friend and then write a blog about it. And that, of course, is my toehold into this world of global talent, is because I happen to get a lot of viewership on that, and people had started making their own boxes like this. And now
Yes.
I have a story that I can point the examiners to, right?
Yes. And tell me, what's the tech element for that box?
What'd you say?
What's the tech?
There is a GPS module in here. There is a display and a little Arduino controller and a servo motor that's hidden behind this little thing that moves the latch. So only four tiny components.
There you
At
go.
the time, there was no software to program these GPS modules. So I wrote Tiny GPS, which is a software module that Arduino users can use to easily work with GPS. And that's become sort of the world's leading GPS software. So that's my other little toehold into some story that an examiner might see on the web and hopefully think is cool.
Very cool. I think it's cool because when I was designing my heater gloves, I used Arduino. So, I kind of knew about Michael, but until I met him, I was like, hang on a minute. This guy, I know this guy. So it was fortuitous that we did meet. And yeah, I hope people can, it's electronics, it's all that kind of stuff that I played around with. I'm not great at it. I'm not a tech person, but I appreciate the creativity and the impact it has to the tech community. Okay, so we digress a little bit, but that's okay because you're so interesting. Let's talk about your application. Who were your experts that we chose to help you?
Well, as I mentioned, I was for nearly 25 years a senior software engineer at Intel. So I thought it would be probably good to get at least one person from Intel to write a document. So my initial thought was, one of my friends has been promoted to vice president. Won't that be impressive to these examiners to have a vice president from Intel writing a letter of recommendation? And maybe it would be, but Michelle pointed out to me that a vice president is not always seen as someone who could be a good judge of technical talent. And remember what she said earlier is that the examiners are evaluating not only you, but also your letter writers. So if this vice president guy was not himself a technical expert, then maybe they wouldn't consider his letter. Anyway, long story short, I ended up going with a senior engineering colleague of mine at Intel who had multiple, I think he has 30 patents of his own, to write a letter of recommendation. And then because it's important to be diverse you can't just have three people from your immediate company, or it's better to have people outside your company. I got a scientist who uses my software, and then a CEO of a company that sells products that uses some of my software on there. So I had kind of what I thought to be hopefully a diverse spectrum letter writers for me, and they were all very happy to help me out because, I've helped them out in the past. So it was a great relationship that we had.
Yeah, that was really good. And you had so many people to support you, but unfortunately, we had to do a process of elimination. Even though we wanted to include everyone, we just had to also make sure that they were the right people who could vouch for you and who could help you tell your story and highlight your achievements and how would that help you meet the criteria as well. It was quite strategic what we were trying to do, but I hope you could see that it paid off in the end. Obviously, it did, but yeah, it was tough because you had loads of great people.
Yes, it was very
Yeah.
painful. I had a friend who, without even me asking, wrote a lengthy letter of recommendation, but it was filled with this kind of flowery prose that
Mhm.
didn't really have any substance to it. If you say Mikal is awesome, okay, that's great, but you need to have specific details of what things he
Yeah.
accomplished at such and such a point that made a big difference in the bottom line at Intel
Yeah.
or wherever. And
Yeah.
so, Michelle, you helped me to winnow out what are the important things
Yeah.
and discard the other ones.
Yeah. Okay, so they were the experts. Now, because there are five criteria, we could only pick three. Obviously, we picked the mandatory criteria. What criteria did we select for the optional criteria for you?
Again, this is where you really helped me. I consider myself to be an innovator. So one of the categories is innovation. Well, that's a natural fit for me. Well, except that my greatest claim to being an innovator is this patent, which is too old. So I remember we got on the phone one day after I had done all this work towards my innovation criteria, and you said, I think we should not do your criteria, and we should not go with innovation. We should go with recognition and impact. And it was kind of depressing for me to think she's right again, and I need to change my process. So we went with recognition because I had done a lot of volunteer work with open source. So, and it was recognized. So that seemed natural. And then what's the other one? Impact, right?
Yeah.
Uh, this was a difficult one because most of my work at Intel was writing software that was only used internally. So it's easier to prove impact in industry if you have a public facing product. At Intel, I only had an internally facing product. So I had to get some very believable letter writers to write some letters that indicated that I had made a big impact internally at Intel. So my categories that I chose were proof of recognition and impact in industry.
Yeah, and that was tough. It was hard for you to not use innovation, but we used innovation in a different way with the other criteria because your innovations, yes, were at Intel, but also with the Geo puzzle box. But you weren't working as an employee when you were doing that Geo puzzle box, which is what the innovation criteria called for. So that's why we chose the optional criteria to the proof of recognition. You had massive impact to the makerspace community. So we used it, and that you had so much there.
That's
Yeah.
another example of where your guidance was valuable, Michelle, is because you reminded me that the innovation criteria specifically says is as an employer or founder of a
Yeah.
product-led company, and all my innovation or all my the innovation I wanted to use for my application was as an external person not relating to a tech product-led company. So
Yeah.
you were always reminding me to stick to the guidance, and that was so valuable. Thank you.
Yes, yes. And sometimes assessors can get it wrong as well. So, we had a strategy that if it didn't get accepted, we would go back to, okay, well, let's put it under innovation and reapply maybe. But look, we didn't need to, which was great. So, it's hard. I've got loads of different feedback from different assessors. So we kind of, from what I could see, this was the less risky option, but we also had something else to fall back on if it didn't work. So
That's
yeah.
right. I was battling against a clock because
Yes.
I needed to apply before my skilled worker visa was formally curtailed. As you know, some of when you get made redundant, there's a clock that starts ticking, and your visa will be someday curtailed. So I had to get this
Mm.
application in before the curtailment. And then once you've got it in, you can you can, as Michelle said, if the endorsement is denied, we had a backup strategy for following through the second strategy. So we were going to do that, but yeah, as you say, fortunately, we didn't have to.
And you didn't have to leave the country. It was just, yeah, time was ticking for Michael. It was, and I do this with a lot of clients who either are redundant or their visa expiring. I had the same issue. My entrepreneur's visa was expiring. I really literally only had 2 months. I didn't even think about it. It just kind of crept up, and I only had 2 months to apply. Otherwise, I'd be deported myself. So I know what it's like. This is why, take my advice, come to me sooner rather than later. I've
Well,
got
that's
people
good
who have,
advice.
yeah, I've got people who have visas that are expiring not until next year. But I'm like, thank you for telling me because we have time to work on your application. Yeah, it's time is of the essence. Okay, so let's talk about timing. When did you submit? Michael's got a good story here. When did you submit your application and when did you get it? And then we're going to talk about your ILR as well.
Right. Yeah. I had a very strange summer. I learned that I was redundant. My redundancy date was April 30th. About April 1st is when I started talking with Michelle about I'm going to seriously do this. And then because of the uncertainty about the visa, I couldn't renew our flat in Oxford. So we spent, my wife and I, bless her heart, spent the whole summer homeless in the UK. We couldn't sign a lease on an apartment because of a fear of visa problems, but we also couldn't leave the country because once you leave the country, then the visa lapses. So we just wandered around the UK, which I guess we shouldn't complain about. That's a fabulous way to live. But I ended up working full time because I'm a perfectionist. I wanted every T crossed and every I dotted for about 4 months full time while my wife sat there watching me, bless her. And submitted my application on August the 13th, and then got the result on August the 30th, and then went in for my biometrics, I think September 12th, and
Mhm.
then got the final paperwork on, I think, September 20th, something like that. So I've been a proud holder of the visa, not even 3 months.
That's amazing. It really is. I mean, if you think about it, you worked on your application longer than it took to approve you and getting the actual visa as well.
Right. I kept thinking, I'm going to work really hard on this, and then maybe this will be the last thing I have to really work on hard for my whole life.
I know you
We shall
think that
see.
it is. I still
Yeah,
think I got mine in 2016. It's still etched in my brain that that is the hardest thing that I ever did.
right. And I feel for some of you who are going to go through this process while you're still employed. I had
Yeah.
at least the benefit of being recently made redundant, so at least I didn't have a full-time job like some of you
Yeah.
will be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I agree. I was working on my startup, so I didn't sleep for a few months while I was doing my application. But yeah, it is true. You have to really think about the time it takes so that you can have a life as well. Yeah, so thank you for that. So yeah, very quick. It was August into and then so when Michael got his visa in September 20th, I met Michael in October. So a month later, we met in London and had a great celebration. You were one of the most recent who received it because I had clients that had had their visa for 5 years or for 3 years, but Michael was just fresh, the freshest one that received his visa. So it was a great celebration. Congratulations. It was an amazing result.
I'm in your
Yeah.
picture though that you
You
showed
are.
a couple of slides back. Yeah.
Yes. Now tell me, when are you applying for your ILR? Because Michael has now got his visa. Time in the UK has counted. So for you, you have to you can talk much about the test and getting your ILR.
Right. So one of the things you have to do to get ILR, that's indefinite leave to remain, is you have to pass the Life in the UK test. So I said, well, I'm going to take that while I'm still fresh on the joy of having received this visa. So I studied like a young college student for this exam, and I passed it. Right around the time I got the visa, I also passed that Life in the ILR, Life in the UK exam. And because I was fortunate to have already spent as Michelle said, the 2 years on the skilled worker visa, for me, my chance to apply for ILR is next month. I can apply in January for um, indefinite leave to remain. And if I get that, that'll be even one more level of freedom that
Yeah.
Michelle has helped me to get. It feels so good to not be handcuffed to a single employer, as Michelle was saying. I'm having a blast. I do little consulting for little UK companies that couldn't possibly sponsor a skilled worker visa. I have the freedom to work as a volunteer, as a consultant. I'm living the good life thanks to this new visa.
Yeah. That's really good. I'm so proud of you, Mark. You've always been positive though. So from the very first minute I met you, you were always, really enthusiastic and passionate, not only in telling your story, but what this visa could mean for you. And it really is. I really did think it was too good to be true when I saw the visa myself, because I was thinking I was on an entrepreneur's visa and I had so many restrictions, but this one was too good. It was flexible and it gave you ILR and British citizenship, and I thought this can't be right, and it is. I have my citizenship. It is right. And it's quicker than you would ever imagine. So yeah, but it is a challenge, but you just have to get through that. Before we take on questions, I want you now, because you are a UK Global Talent Visa recipient who's just been through the process, what advice would you give other applicants, the people who are here today, who are looking at you, what advice would you give them?
Well, um, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that really was seminal for me was reading that guy's post who said, "Look, I consider myself to be an ordinarily talented guy. I did a lot of work and I got the visa. So don't be discouraged." That's my first thought. My second thought is, as I mentioned earlier, if this is on not on your immediate horizon, but maybe in a couple of years you're thinking about applying for global talent, work hard to make that online presence so that people can find you and so that you can give the examiner an easy job. That's an important thing. You've got to make it easy for those examiners to see, oh yeah, this guy has done this or this person has done that. Get that online presence going. Post something. I think that's really important. Read the guidance carefully. I spent so many hours undoing work I had done. If I had just read that, you can't have criteria that are older than 5 years in your documents. If I'd have just paid more attention to that, read the guidance. Better yet, hook up with Michelle earlier rather than later, and she can help you remember to read the guidance. Michelle, you completely. When I imagine the application I would have submitted had I not gone with you, it's completely different than the one I ended up submitting. And thank you very much for that, because it's all the difference in the world. I'm 100% sure I would have never gotten the endorsement without your guidance.
Oh, I'm sure you would have, or it would have looked, like you say, a little bit different, but maybe it would not have met the criteria. I mean, you talked about the links, that's the first thing. You would have put lots of links, and that's something, just a small thing like that could hurt your application.
Right. But when I was building these in my mind, I was imagining a 3-page dissertation, of dense text with tons of links and footnotes. And Michelle reminded me that the examiners do not necessarily click the links. If you want some external information to be in your document, you need to take a screenshot of it and put it directly in there. Otherwise, it may get ignored. And also, you very politely sort of said, lose all this flowery text. We don't need to read paragraph after paragraph of how you came to some design decision. It's just get to the meat.
No, it's great. It's great. You are a great storyteller. However, we only had 3 pages, and I just wanted to make sure that we hit the criteria in those 3 pages. Otherwise, your application would be 100 pages, and someone has to read this.
Right.
Yeah, that's why they have the. Do you know, when I applied, mine was 2 pages. That was the limit.
No.
I couldn't fit anything in.
No, no.
So, 3 pages is lovely. Like that's a lot for me because I'm used to doing the two. Obviously, I did it once, but yeah, three is perfect because you don't want to put too much and the assessor's reading it. Yeah. And so what are your exciting plans now? I think you kind of mentioned it, but just to wrap it
Well,
up because we need to get to all the questions now.
I consider myself, even though I'm a technologist, I want to be an artist somehow. So I have this vision of setting up a little maker studio in Oxfordshire somewhere, and just building stuff like this, and making other little inventions and doing consulting, and just kind of living the life as I imagine I wanted to be, living out my dream. And so as we've said too many times now, this global talent visa has really opened up the possibility for me to do that.
Amazing, Mark. It feels like you've got a new zest on life. I know, I feel like you already had a zest on life, but this is even more so because Intel was such a huge part of your career. And instead of, a lot of people saying, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, I've got too much to do. I don't know what to do because I've got too much. And,
No,
it's
I'm fortunate.
amazing. Yeah,
I am
it's
fortunate
really
in that
good.
regard.
I'm so happy for you, and I'm really so proud of you. I was so proud of you from when I first met you, but just going through this process, you really were a great person to work with. You listened to my advice and guidance, and not at one point did you question. I mean, yeah, we talked about things, and I would show you the guidelines, and we really did work as a team, which I really enjoyed. And that's why I love doing what I do because I feel like I'm part of your team to help you get this. Like that's all I want is I want you to be successful. you know.
I want to say one last thing is that even I would be really disappointed if I had not gotten the endorsement. But even if I hadn't got the endorsement, I would be pretty proud of the process that we went through. And now I have this 45-page document that's sort of a summation of all the work that I've done has any meaning for the last 5, 10 years. And I would be proud of that too. So I would be happy, even if, well, wouldn't be as happy, but I would still be pleased that I have this document of my work.
Yeah, and I'm pleased. I mean, I knew you would get it. I don't tell people that they will get it because obviously it's up to the assessor's discretion and decision. I had very high hopes for you, but I'm glad you could see that because I think this is a great reflective process because it requires you to look at the last 5 to 7 years of your career, and you never have time to do that in your day-to-day life and job. And what I must say, which I love, and I encourage everyone if they want to look at Michael's LinkedIn. Michael has uploaded his CV, which we worked on, but like kudos to you, you did this all yourself. I just fixed it a little bit, but this we did it towards the end of the process, which I like to tell my clients to do the CV at the end and your personal statement at the end, because then you know what's in your application to summarize for the assessor. A lot of people do it the other way around. They do the CV and their personal statement at the beginning. But my strategy is to do it at the end because you know what's in your application then and you're summarizing it. But your CV is really nice. It's colorful, it's visually appealing, um, and it tells the story without too much text.
Yeah, it was a little bit radical, that CV. It's mostly pictures, which is
Yeah,
quite a departure. I'm an old-fashioned guy. A CV
yeah.
that is blue pictures mostly is a little bit weird, but we decided let's be bold, and we did.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. It was really nice. If anyone wants to check out Michael's CV, I mean, it is different. Not everyone's CV looks like that, but because of Michael's background and because of all the projects Michael had done, it lended itself to do your CV in this way. So, I don't encourage anyone just to copy it and do it like that. It's just because Michael's unique background and skills and everything that he had done, it fit perfectly for him, but not everyone does that. My CV is very boring. It's not as exciting as yours. Okay, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it. And I know we have gone over, and I hope people can stay on because I'd like to answer some questions. And yes, this webinar is recorded. So if everyone has to go, please do. But I'm going to stay on with Michael, if that's okay, Michael, with you as well, to answer some questions, because we have loads of questions. I just want to quickly go, first of all, there's a question about, if you're doing things, there are things about the leadership criteria. Someone's asked, in order to meet a publication profile, can you publish right before you submit to TechNation? Probably not, because the assessors are well onto those who submit things and publish things right before their application, because it's for the purposes of the application and not for the purposes of you being a leader in your field. Sometimes it just so happens that, you might have evidence from a few years ago and you might have some publications more recently before submission. But if everything's done right before submission, the assessor is going to look at the dates and say, well, are you really a leader, or are you just doing this for the purposes of the application? So just be mindful of that. Okay, so someone works in a technical service, customer service role. Customer service, it depends. If you have a look at the skills again, is it about developing products, or is it about sales or growing a team? So I can assess your eligibility with that one. Project management, again, it depends what you do and how do you add value to the development of the product or selling of the product. Okay, so it always has to go towards product development. Does TechNation guarantee a visa from the Home Office? Not necessarily. It's one of the requirements when you apply for the visa, because stage 2 is a Home Office visa application. There are other things that you need to submit. I think depending on which country you're applying from, you might need a tuberculosis test. They do background checks, so like criminal record checks and things like that, so that it's a legal process. I don't deal with that. I only help with the endorsement application. But generally speaking, it is process driven, this stage 2. What kind of job or what kind of work outside the job role is expected by software product development engineers? Well, Michael's given you so many examples. He was very involved with the makerspace community. I have technical people who have a GitHub profile, who help mentor and guide some coding boot camps and make technical contributions to certain community organizations and things like that. So those are some ideas, and also look at your industry as well, how you can add value to your industry with your skills. Should one apply for the visa at the time of applying for endorsement if there is time limit on the current visa? I might ask Michael what Michael did. Sorry, Michael, you've gone off, but you come back. When you applied for you didn't apply for stage 1 and 2 together, did you?
Originally, the plan was,
Yes.
because I was sure we were going to be getting this curtailment letter on my skilled worker visa, and we would have a lot of time pressure. The original plan was to apply for both of them together. But then as we worked through the process, and I never got that letter from the Home Office saying my visa was going to be curtailed in 60 days, we decided we had a little time. So I ended up applying for the stage 1 first, and then only the stage 2 after the endorsement came through.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was your strategy. I feel like this is a very specific question that I think you need to speak to a lawyer about, because time is one of those things that you don't want to mess about with, especially if you're on a time limit in the UK. So if you need a legal advice, I can give it to you. I can refer you to an immigration solicitor. But you can apply for stage 1 and 2 together, but it's just there are issues around that if you don't get endorsed. So I can help you with that. Let me know, send me an email and I can refer you to a solicitor. Okay, so government organizations this question is about, is a government organization a product-led digital technology company? Unfortunately, if they're not developing products, they probably wouldn't be considered a product-led digital technology company. I get questions about banks, traditional banks and government organizations. So they might not fall within the definition of a product-led digital technology company, because the products they're using is probably for internal purposes and not for customers. interns, events and sponsorships. Internship, I mean, it depends if it's full-time or part-time, but if you've worked for a events team, I need to speak to you a bit further on that question. Sorry. If you wanted to jump on a call with me, a legibility call, that would be good. We need a bit more information and I can help you. Okay, someone's asked, when you say application, does it mean endorsement or including visa stage? I'm only talking about stage 1 endorsement. Okay. Okay, so someone's asking what date will it be open? So the Global Talent Visa is opened all year round. There's no specific date, so you can apply anytime. And yeah, it'll just go through as normal. How early or late in months or years to an application for endorsement should academic achievements be published? So I feel like it can be any time. As I said, just be careful about right before endorsement. Like if you've got a lot of documents that are submitted with the date right before endorsement, that might be seen. But if you have a reason for it, like for example, if you enter awards or if you won an award and it's right before nomination, that's not within your control because the awarding body would do that. So it really depends, and I can help you have a look at all your documents to just see. And if you have reasons why certain things are on certain dates, then you should mention that in your application, just in case the assessor might feel like it's too close to the submission date. Okay. I've got other questions. Okay. Okay, sorry, we did digress, and it's someone saying that we spoke too much, but I hope it was for everyone's benefit, and I'm glad we got to get to the Q&A. If I haven't answered your question, if you can email me separately, that would be great, and I can set up a call with you so we can discuss this further. But I feel like we have gone over, and I'm sorry about that. Michael, it's just so interesting, and wanted to thank you. If you don't have any more questions, someone's raised their hand. If you wanted to ask your question, please do. Michael, do you have any other things that you'd like to add? Because we're kind of getting towards the end now. And I just want to ask everyone, thank you so much for staying. Can you congratulate Michael with me? If you've got an emoji that you can select in your message, it would be lovely to congratulate Michael. And yes, you can wave. Oh, look, Michael, look at all the emojis.
That's really
Thank
touching.
you so much. That's really great. And if you've got
And,
any other questions, please
yeah,
do. Oh, that's really good. I love seeing all those emojis.
wow,
Oh,
look
look,
at
you've
that.
got hearts. Look at that. Thank you, everyone. It's really great. Really great. And I hope, oh, look, parties. I'm so pleased that you were able to join us. And Michael, you've been amazing. And you know what? As I said, maybe in one of our private chats and everything, not everyone agrees to be interviewed, and that is really up to them. Not everyone wants to be, to share their story. But Michael, I do really appreciate you that you did share your story because, you know, it's what helps people understand the process. It helps people see that we are normal people um, doing our jobs and doing a little bit more for the community so that other people can look at you and say, well, actually, if he got it, I can try as well.
Well, it's such a pleasure, Michelle. And like I said many times, you've helped me so much. I'm glad to be of any help I can be. If anybody wants to ask
Mm.
me a question on LinkedIn, you can probably find me somehow. But yeah, thanks for inviting me on. It was really fun. I enjoyed it. Good luck to all
Thank
of
you
you
so
on
much.
the call.
Thank you, Michael. And I'm going to leave it here because we are way over, and I want everyone to have a nice day. We are 20 minutes over, but thank you so much for everyone for coming. If I haven't answered your question, please do email me at techvisa@michellehewer.co.uk, and I will get back to you. But again, thank you so much, Michael. It was so lovely to see you, and I'm so pleased that I got to meet you in person after all this time and to see you, succeed. And we will keep in touch, definitely. And
Great.
we
I
will
look
keep
forward to
waving
it.
our flag.
Good luck, everyone.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Bye.